that's going to lead us up into another well-needed conversation we need to have, because one thing we were talking about yesterday was we are not prepared as a people for where we're getting ready to go. There are only a certain amount of people that actually see where we headed to, and so we're so busy dabbling in where we at that we're not preparing for what's getting ready to come. And one thing that you brought up that was so important was the universal language of us all speaking Swahili. And I had never thought of that until you brought that to mind, because here we are sitting up here talking about building with one another, reaching out to other continents, our people all around the world, but we spread out and scattered out speaking all these different languages. So one thing we have to do first is all get on one accord with the language. That's some work that's going to have to be done. Yes. You know, so we can communicate, reach out with these brothers and sisters. So here in Houston, Texas, we have a real serious movement going on. You know, this ain't the game, this ain't the joke, it's real serious. So what advice would you give us, you know, moving forward? What are some practical things that we can put in place, things that we should be doing, you know, that you can put on our mind, that we can stay focused on, some actual progress that we can see, some small landmarkers that we can pass, headed toward that direction?
I say this realizing fully that you may already be doing this. So I'm going to open generally speaking, but you may already be doing this. And for that I respect. For one thing, keep doing what you're doing. That's one thing. Keep moving forward with everything that you do. But Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop teaches us that when someone wants to oppress you, there are three things they take from you. They take your history, they take your language, and they take your psychological factor. Your psychological factor are your values, your interests, and your principles. The history piece is just what we're doing. Going back into our school and understanding our history and our culture. From Things Out of Darkness to Hidden Colors to all the other great movies that are coming out about our history and our culture. Okay, that will bring back to developing our own schools. Okay, after school program. Realistically speaking, what I am recommending, and again, I didn't know how this was going to work out, so on my computer, I collected pictures that I've had through the years of the Black Panther Party. And my recollections of the Black Panther Party as it relates to the Saturday groups, educating the children. I have pictures of the teachers in Oakland that developed a school for the children. Like I said, my first words in Kiswahili I learned sitting and attending in Black Panther meetings. But they were schools. I remember doctors coming in, and dentists, and lawyers, you know, that service the people. Dr. Amos Wilson says that for an organization to be successful, it must meet its people's needs and solve its people's problems. And the basic challenges that we face as a people is food, clothing, housing, the basic needs. And that is what the Black Panther Party supplied for the people, along with medical assistance and things like that, the basic needs and wants of the people. Finding out when various tests for jobs come out, whether it be transportation tests or post office tests or whatever, having a place where people can come and find out where can I get a job. Labor concepts. So the history is there, but the language piece that we talk about is that we have to be able to talk with each other, and we have to find a language that we can talk. I respect and honor all African languages, but Medunetta, or what we call hieroglyphs, should become our classical language. And there's a way we can teach it, okay? And I look forward to returning so that we can now focus directly on exactly what I'm saying about. There's a book called Hieroglyphs for Babies that is a follow the number where children can learn Medunetta or hieroglyphic symbols. That has to become our classical African language. But the practical language that says to us that we are going to speak to each other, you go to Holland, brothers and sisters speak Dutch. I speak English. But for us to talk to each other, we should be able to speak Kiswahili to each other. You go to Brazil, brothers and sisters speak Portuguese. We speak English. We should speak to each other in Kiswahili. Kiswahili is the largest African language spoken in the world. Kiswahili is the largest African language spoken in the world. Kiswahili is the 7th largest language spoken in the world. Kiswahili has been adapted by the United Nations as an official language of the United Nations. So like when they have translations in French and they have translations in Spanish and English, they also have translations in Kiswahili. Now, there's a little controversy. They say that there are other words in Kiswahili. But those other words are only words that have been adapted. But the base of Kiswahili is strongly an African language. Not just that, but Kiswahili is spoken in Kenya and Tanzania, where that is the origins of the human family. So at the base of Kiswahili is the original language that we spoke at one time before we even set out to populate the planet. So Kiswahili becomes a practical language. Now, there are many languages that, Nigeria has hundreds of languages. Ghana has hundreds. So I'm not picking one that I'm saying is the best. I'm saying it's practical. We already celebrate Kiswahili in Kwanzaa. So we're already on the road to implementing Kiswahili. So why not take this concept and apply it to start this process of communication with each other? And then, of course, the other languages that you may want to adapt, you do whatever you want to do. But for right now, Kiswahili becomes that language. As it relates to values, interests, and principles, I passed a housing project called Thomas Jefferson. Okay? Now, the great majority of people living there are black and Hispanic. Now, if you know the history of Thomas Jefferson, then you understand something. That if Thomas Jefferson was alive today, he'd be in jail for being a pedophile. He brought Sally Hemings, this young teenage girl, to France to have an illicit relationship with this black girl in France because he didn't want to have it in the United States. Because Sally Hemings was the product of an illicit relationship that his father-in-law had with a black girl on that plantation. So while he was married to his wife, he was having an illicit affair with his wife's half-sister, who was a teenage girl. Not to mention, not only did he have a relationship with Sally Hemings, but they say that at least a third of the children on that plantation, he was their father. He had a thing for black women. So how could I ever live in the Jefferson houses as a black person? There's something wrong with my value. Not me personally, but that I'm living in a complex where they named where I live after someone who meant me no good. So we have to start to change our values and our interests and our principles and bring it back to an African value system. Now, everybody's not going to do that, and I understand. Some people say, I have no problem with living in the Jefferson house. Okay, you live there. I'm not talking to you. But I'm talking to people who are willing to make a change. I'm through converting.
I know that's right.
Because if I have to convince you, there's nothing I can say that will change your mind. And if I don't have to convince you, let's just roll back our sleeves and get busy. Like I use the analogy of the fireplace. When you want to start a fire, you light the log that's nearest to you and put the log in the fireplace. That log lights the next one. That log lights the next one. So what we have to do is we have to light the log that's nearest to us, so that will light another one. Pretty soon you have a roaring fire, but you only lit one log. We're overwhelming ourselves by doing too much. And then pretty soon we just give up because it's an awesome task. As opposed to doing your best. Just doing your best. And I envision an organization that develops a educational program, tutorial program, a program that does counseling. We need counseling. We really need counseling. We need to reach out. In Raleigh-Durham, last week I was talking about this concept, and there was a sister that was a social worker. And she said, what do you think I can do? I said, well, one thing you can do is realize how badly we need counseling. Like you were talking about earlier about how we relate to sisters and sisters relate to us. We need to have, and we need, just like you've called brothers in to have this conversation, sisters need to talk to sisters, because there are things we can say as brothers that we wouldn't say in front of sisters for one way or another. Soon we may be able to do that. Like with the workshops I did, at the end we brought everybody together. But in the beginning it was brother to brother, sister to sister, and then it was brother to the sisters, sister to the brother, and then we ate, and then we all came together and talked about the end result of what we had experienced. So we need to reach out to the Association of Black Psychologists, the Association of Black Social Workers, and we need to start developing a way in which we can have these types of forums where brothers come together and talk proactively about what's going to happen. Not necessarily what sisters do wrong, but what brothers can do right. Because that's how we have to be geared. We can't, because of course we know that everything that we do wrong, most of what we do wrong, part of it is because we're human, but part of it is because of this oppressive society we live under. So instead of having the topic, what sisters are doing wrong, or sisters talking about what brothers do wrong, our agenda should be geared towards what we can start to do right, which becomes proactive. So when we come back into the room with our sisters, our conversations are proactive. It's not about what I do or what you do. It's about what should we do from this point on. We realize, okay, we got situation. That's why we're here. And the sisters should work out their inner problems, and brothers should work out their inner problems, so that by the time we come back together again, we're not trying to work out those problems no more. We're just trying to figure out how we can go from here and begin to do what we have to do for our people. And so that's what I see. Everything that I think we search to do, we've already done. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's already been done. We need to have an active program in our incarceration centers where we visit our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated. We follow the model of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam, I don't know if you've seen this book before, it talks about how they got brothers and sisters off drugs. That step-by-step method. What it said is that they would always assign one person to someone that's getting off drugs. And that was your person. And so they realized that your withdrawal, when you're in drugs or when you're addicted to anything, once you stop, you have crests and troughs. You have high points and low points. As an ex-smoker, I know that I had points when I was stopping that I wanted a cigarette. I wanted to smoke a cigarette. But it only lasted for about 2 minutes. And if I could get through that 2 minutes, then I was all right. So they used to assign someone to be there at those moments, like 2 minutes of, hey, brother, you can do this, man. You strong, brother. I know. I respect you, man. I know you can do this, man. Don't worry. So they would talk that person through that 2 minute of cravings. And then the brother or sister would be all right, okay? Then they'd be fine. And then all of a sudden it would come back, and their brother would talk them through it. And so that's how they got folk off drugs. It was very straightforward, very simple, very interesting too. With all these other stuff, methadone and all the rest of that, it's funny what another brother or sister can do to someone to get them off drugs. And to visit folk that have been incarcerated. Because some of the most intelligent people I've ever met were incarcerated. And in fact, the reason why they are in prison or in special ed is because they're so intelligent. Because they're smart enough not to go with okey doke.
Right.
It's the folk on the outside that have problems because you can be molded. I was just lucky because I couldn't handle certain things. When I came out the military, I had to go to anger management. I was a brother just coming out of at the time it was the Vietnam War conflict. I was coming up out of the military, and I was angry, very angry. But fortunately, I had a counselor that was at the VA, sister, that hooked me up with a counselor that worked with me for 3 years, from 74 to 77, and we worked out, That's how I know, that's how when I relate to our people, no matter where they are, I don't care if you're in a street organization, some people call them gangs, it makes me no difference. I feel that anger, and I know what it feels like to go to work and people don't respect you, they say things to you and they do and you know why they're saying it to you. But for whatever reason, if you want to keep that job to put food on your table and take care of your babies, you can't react to that because you'll lose your job. So we got to take all this stuff in. Then we go home, we piss. And sometimes the very person who we love the most and who love us are the ones we take it out on. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And it's a cycle that we hand down from generation to generation. And if we could have these types of things where we could just let this out, you know, and then have a physical activity class where we can lift weights or we can run or just get that other energy out, you know, complementary between a physical education program and a mental health session. All of this can get all that stuff out. And then a proper eating diet, you know. But if you could structure that as an organization, you know, and just get real with our people, you know, because the brothers and sisters that I've worked with over time, you know, I do most of my work on the phone. I talk to people constantly. People call me to talk, and we talk. And our people, many of them are in pain. Real serious pain by matter of degree. We are in pain. And I could only imagine the pain it feels to have your best buddy or your child or your loved one shot by another brother or sister. And I can only imagine what that pain is. You know, I've had it done, not people close to me, by the blessings of the Creator, but I feel it. But it's a cycle that we're all living in. We're all in this pit together. And the system is making us conduct ourselves like this because they can make money. Okay, they make money. The private industrial complex, American Express, owns prisons. When folks say don't leave home without it, every time you spend your American Express card, you're supporting the prisons that imprison our people. Big business is in the prison industrial complex. McDonald's is in the prison industrial complex. And so, you know, we have to have that feeling for our people that extends ourselves out. And I think that organizations that can do this, folk will come. And if we can heal them, then they will become lifelong members. Not so much of your organization, but of your philosophy. And that's what builds, I think. This is fundamental on the ground. Having sessions here, having some of the folk that are part of what you do here, having a class on history, you know, taking them out to the rifle range. Because you know them Europeans are doing that day by day. They're taking their children out.
Yeah.
You know, let's be real. The only time they talk about, you know, nonviolence is with us.
Right.
Because them folk be collecting them guns. You know, and we're the only ones talking about we're going to sell them for tickets to Toys R Us. Kind of nonsense. You know, I mean, they're arming themselves to a teeth for something.
Right.
And we're trying to say, oh, let's get rid of all the guns.
Right.
No. You know, like my brother Chokwe Lumumba said, you know, I believe in gun control. Control your gun. I'm being real, man. Because this is nonsense that we're talking to our people.
That's right.
This is nonsense. They're preparing for something. They're sending their children out. In fact, remember that little girl that shot her
man in the head?
In the head.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even know how to hold a gun. She shot him in the head. They're taking their children hunting. They're taking their children out to learn. When I was in the military, one of the things that I found most fascinating when I went into the military was how much I didn't know about guns. You know, that the first thing you do before we could even go to the rifle range, we had to learn how to clean our gun. You know how many brothers be buying these guns on the street dirty and don't have a concept that not only do you have to clean your gun, but you got to know how to take it apart and put it back together again. Before we even went on the rifle range, what they made us do was, first of all, we learned how to clean the gun and all the parts of the gun. Not just that, then also we had to take it apart and put it back together again, over and over again. And then the final test was we were blindfolded. They took the gun apart, sprawled it on the table, and we had to put the gun together blindfolded. How, our people who are going out buying these guns, this Al Capone and Scarface mentality that they have, they're not realizing, you have to treat your gun like your most precious possession, like it's your lover.
Me and my girlfriend.
That's it. And you got to treat your gun like that. I'm not taught this. And had I stayed in New York, I wouldn't have been taught this. It was only going into the military that they taught me about guns. They taught me about, but down here, probably, I mean, this is just second nature to you. But up in New York, it's not, because they frown on that. You know, I'm all for the Second Amendment. You know, in fact, Malcolm said, you know, self-defense isn't violence. It's just intelligence.
That's right.
You know? I mean, come on. You know, who are you talking to like this? The only time you start talking about this is when you're talking to me. But when you're talking to them crazy NRA people, you ain't talking to them like that. You're scared of them. The only time you get any courage is when you're talking to me. So our brothers and sisters in the street, the gangs and the street organizations, you have to learn gun control. Control your gun. I ain't trying to take your gun from you. I just want you to keep it in your holster more often than to put it to the head of another brother or sister. But we have to get very real on this conversation, because if we don't, then we are doomed in that sense, because these folk are collecting these guns for something. I mean, when that thing happened in Connecticut, where that young white boy went into that first grade classroom and blew that, because they don't tell you what he actually did in that classroom. You know, the people that went into that classroom, there were brains and guts on the floor. This guy massacred those first graders, 6 and 7-year-olds. Each one was shot at least 8 times. But see, they didn't want to tell folk that. And then they wanted to put police in that school. Parents said, no, this is a school, this isn't a prison. But look at what's in our schools. Mm-hmm. They got stuff look like prisons. Metal detectors and police, and now they got police that are armed. But when you're in a white school, they say, no, this is a school. Now we have stabbings, you know. At worst, sometimes outside somebody gets shot. Okay, that's rough. But here you got a massacre of 7 and 6-year-olds. And they talking about this is a school, this ain't a prison. And not only that, but they raised the school. They brought that school down and built it over again, so that the memories of that school would never exist. So now, if that is what they do when they've been impacted by a horrific event, imagine what's on our minds in our schools when we go through this sort of kind of thing. They don't build schools for us all over again when we have situations, and we don't even have anywhere near what they do. See, I can always tell when we do stuff. Okay, you mess with my brother, you mess with my girl, you mess with me. Okay, I'm gonna catch you. Drive-bys, whatever it is. Okay, there's always a reason. But when you go into a school and you pull a fire alarm and you start shooting your classmates as they leave the school like they did in Columbine, that's premeditated madness right there. So you gotta, you know, they kill each other for reasons like black folks say, I don't even know why they do what they do. Because black folk have their problems, but we have a reason why we will shoot somebody. Right. But we never do it just for joy. Now, that's not to say that sometimes it hasn't happened, but this is another aspect of this as it relates to security. And so we've got to think in terms of healthy ways that we can go to a firing range, that we can have these classes in terms of self-defense, martial arts, however, because you have this place in what is it, the Saleh, the other place that I spoke here in Houston is the martial arts program.
Seha.
Say again?
Seha.
Selah. Oh,
Seha.
Seha, exactly. Because that's where I spoke last time I was here. It's a phenomenal place, nice place like this, and they have a tutorial program, after school program, and you know, make connections there. You know, because we need to make connections too. And you know, I think that if your organization should reach out to the different organizations and to the restaurants, you know, start to make these connections, to have the community trust, you know, and know that these brothers and these sisters are with us, you know, and you know, begin to develop these programs. I think these are fundamental. You know, it would be wonderful if you could start your own school, but I think we should start with simply an after-school program. Tutorial, counseling for the children, program with special education programs that are special education programs, not for special ed students, but for children to come and to be able to work out situations that they face. Workshops for parents that can help them change their children's diets. You know, put a little bit more water, some more, as not non-sugary drinks, things like that. I mean, if you did this, these are real things that you can do. And it's not overwhelming. It can be done. You know, and the more brothers in particular, but sisters also, that you bring into the organization. Because back in the day, 75% of the Black Panther Party were women. The sisters ran the Black Panther Party, which was very interesting. Brothers were out front, but the sisters played a very important role in the Black Panther Party. And sisters always are the center and the heartbeat, the organizers of things. And you know, these are the kinds of things that would demonstrate how we can work together as men and women. And you know, these are the kinds of things that we can start to do.